The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
Joining us now with more insights on the SBF trial is SkyBridge Capital founder and managing partner, Anthony Scaramucci. Welcome, Anthony.
Michael, good morning. Good morning, Mike. How's everybody?
Doing well.
They got to give Sam's ADHD medication to the jury, right? We got to keep him awake to pay attention to the trial.
Something keep it going. I think our CoinDesk reporters could do some of that as well. It's an exhausting process.
Wow.
But obviously paying attention, which is just what we're hitting, why we've got you here.
No one from the FDA is watching.
You knew Sam personally, right? And you were a business partner, right? The investment arm of FTX had previously purchased 30% of SkyBridge Capital, and you hosted the Crypto Bahamas together. So what has all this meant for you, watching this thing unfold this past week?
Well, I mean, listen, it's been absolutely heartbreaking. I'll take you back. I'll take you back to November the 8th, which was Tuesday. And I arrived in the Bahamas to learn firsthand what was actually going on and how the funds were used and how they got wired around. And, I was shocked then, saddened, angered, all that sort of stuff. I'm now way past all of that. And I'm now in the zone that this was fraud, and it was done by people who are fraudulent. Okay. And so what bothers me about the whole thing is that it's getting blamed on crypto, and it hurts the reputation of crypto investing, Web3, the whole thought of where we could go from a technical innovation point of view. And so, this will go on now probably until Christmas. Sam is obviously playing the probability that if there's just one out of those 12 jurors that doesn't understand the case or can somehow sympathize with him, he's hoping to get off. I don't think that will happen, but things happen. What we learn about jury cases is none of us know. It's a little bit of a coin toss in terms of what happens, despite what the facts might be, guys. So but I'm saddened by the whole thing. It's not, I'm not looking for anything other than getting this behind us so that we can focus on all the great things that are happening in the industry.
So last year, Anthony, we had these crypto kings, Sam Bankman-Fried, CB, and others. It looks like Sam's now going to possibly spend his life behind bars. We've got, if he's convicted, of course, we've got CZ also being sued by the SEC. We got, Kevin O'Leary saying that these crypto cowboys are all on their way out. This is now time for the grown-ups to come in. I mean, how do you see all of this flushing out? Are we moving to a more institutionalized, grown-up, if you like, crypto world, or do we continue in this sort of more, freewheeling style?
Well, listen, I have a great relationship with Kevin. I have a lot of respect for Kevin, and we worked on some FTX things together. I do think we disagree a little bit on CZ. I think he feels strongly that CZ brought FTX down. I don't think if FTX was handling things properly and if they had one-to-one lockage on their customer assets as what was put in the terms of service, no matter what CZ said and or did, it would not have hurt FTX. So, I don't agree with that. I think it's Sam and the 3 or 4 people that have already pled guilty that brought down FTX. I think the other thing about CZ, which I think is important, is that he is being sued by the SEC, but he is not being sued criminally yet. There's no Department of Justice indictment related to CZ. Now, that could happen. I'm not close enough to the situation, but I think people deserve their day in court, and I think they deserve the opinion and the presumption of innocence. And I think, as I've said continually, Sam certainly deserves his day in court. But you're asking about if we're going to end up into the grown-up world in crypto, and I don't think that happens, Michael, until we get the Bitcoin ETF. Until we get a cash Bitcoin ETF in the United States, I don't think we enter the grown-up world. I think we're going to be in this sort of native position, this still early stage position, and with continued volatility and uncertainty, but still adoption. I think the adoption has been exponential. I think people have to focus on that. But you get a crypto ETF, you're going to break the wall down, and you'll have a fully institutionalized process.
Well, I'm going to ask you. I do want to ask you about the crypto ETFs that are in applications right now. But you're a Harvard-trained lawyer. Have you been asked to testify in this trial?
I have not been asked to testify. So I said that on CNBC last week. I think they presented my name last week to potential jurors. I have attorneys obviously that I'm close to that said to me perhaps they did that because I'm a public figure, or I'm more or less outspoken. I've been outspoken about the case. And so they just wanted to make sure that there was nobody on the jury that knew me personally, where they felt that my opinion of what went on could be something that would unduly influence a juror. But I have not been asked to testify. And I appreciate you asking me that question because it allows me to clear it up, because there's been suggestions that I'm going to be on the stand during this case. And I've frankly been told specifically that I will not be.
Do you want to?
No, I don't want to. No.
Okay.
Would you want to? I mean,
I'd say Center Street's a nice place. Sometimes it's better to be a witness than to be on the wrong side of that.
Certainly better to be a witness. But listen, I wasn't close enough to the blast zone, frankly, so I don't think there's any relevancy. I mean, I can take you through a TikTok of what happened on November 8th, which I've already stated publicly. It's already out there in the public, but I wasn't close enough to the blast zone. I think what's the most interesting thing about the case, and if I were Sam's defense attorneys, you have to come up with an explanation why 4 of his senior executives have already pled guilty to the case. And so, there's an expression that you learn in trial advocacy. If the window's open and you hear clippity clop outside, it's a horse, guys. It's not a zebra. So, you have to explain to me why 4 of your cohorts, which were in your inner circle, have already explained to the U.S. government and the Department of Justice what you guys perpetrated. And so then please explain to us why you think you're the only one of the cohorts that should be considered innocent. I think that's something that hopefully they'll get to, and hopefully the jury will be awake for that one, because I'm interested in that one myself.
So you probably saw Michael Lewis, the business journalist, the famous author. His book, Going Infinite, he came out in 60 Minutes and said that he thought FTX had a great real business, as if no one had cast aspersions on it. It'd be running, just fine with customer deposits and making a ton of money. Yeah. Obviously, got a bit of a big backlash response from the crypto community. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, so he said that. I watched his interview. I also read the book this past weekend. I think the book is very well written. And just to be fair to Michael, I think he brings up a lot of the things that he think went wrong to FTX. People said, this is an apology letter on behalf of Sam. That's not the book. If you actually read the book, you'll see in the book he is fairly objective about everything that went on. I think what Michael is saying is something that I think I felt, and perhaps some of the venture capitalists felt. Had he run it straight up, it would have been a smaller business, perhaps. It would have been a gentleman at the age of 30 worth $300 or $400 million, not $16 billion as he was portrayed to be. And I think what Michael is basically saying is that there were accounts up and running. If you sat on the trading desk, and we did that as part of our due diligence, he had 12.5% of the market share. So, but I think what Michael should have said in the 60 Minutes interview, and these are, they tape them and cut them the way they see fit. So sometimes it's not reflecting perfectly what people are thinking. But what Michael should have said is, had he run the thing pursuant to the terms of service that he put out there, he had market share. He had garnered enough business where he would have been a successful exchange. Would he have been the second largest exchange? Perhaps not. But he was an early mover. And I think Michael's point is that if it was run properly, it could have been a quite profitable business. And so, people could be upset about that. It wasn't run properly. So, I think Michael leaves that for the reader to decide the situation. in my own dealings with Michael, he did say something to me, which I'll share with you guys, that he wasn't going to write the book if he felt that Sam was completely and full on guilty. And so he wrote the book. And so I think that he doesn't believe that he's completely full on guilty. I think that he thinks that some of these indiscretions didn't have criminal intent, and some of these indiscretions were based on disorganization. But if you read the transcripts from last week, and Gary is testifying under oath that they had a plan in place dating way back to 2020. Now, the more cynical part of my personality would then ask, well, 2021 was arguably the best bull market or the best bull cycle in crypto. And if you were going to quote unquote clean it up the way Sam professes to Michael Lewis, wouldn't that have been a great time to have cleaned up the problems that you had? And and of course the answer was, well, if you are never thinking you're going to get caught or never thinking that you need to clean something up, you run it until it crashes into the wall. And we've seen that happen with Theranos. We saw that happen with Bernie Madoff. And we witnessed that last year in terms of what happened to FTX. So to me, I think it's prima facie. And I think the Department of Justice will have to prove that to those 12 people that are listening carefully.
With that said,
the judge is pretty upset with the defense. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, Lawrence, right? I mean, or Michael, I mean, you could see that the judge is not happy with the way these guys are proceeding.
Well, so to sum it up, how would you describe? Would you ultimately? You've dealt with Sam. Is he a crook or a fool?
Okay, again, I'm only giving my opinion, and everybody has a different opinion, and he's titled
to. Well,
you
know him. You've sat in rooms with him.
Entitled to his day in court, and the jurors have been instructed not to listen to us here at CoinDesk or to look at the media. But I think he's guilty, and I think he committed fraud, and I think he committed it intentionally, and I think he had this little bit of a messianic view of himself, the way guys like him and Bernie Madoff do, that, this is excusable fraud because I'm going to save the world and I'm such a genius that I'll be able to put the money that I'm taking against my terms of service in this violation. It's no problem because I'm a genius and I'm a messianic savior of the world, and I'll be able to put the money back in the location where I took it from, and there'll be nobody worse for wear. And so that's criminality. You can't do that in our society. You can't do that in money and investments. And, listen, I mean, remember his general counsel, his directors of compliance, none of them have been implicated because they were frankly shielded from it. And I have said this repeatedly. If you want to commit a financial fraud, what we learned from FTX and what we learned from Bernie Madoff is you have to have a very close group of people to commit that fraud. Because if you have 50 or 60 people looking at something with that level of checks and balances, there's always a person of conscience that comes up and says, hey, sorry, that doesn't work for me. I'm not going to jail for you guys to do Super Bowl ads. It's just not going to work for me. And they didn't have that because it was so intentional. They had a closed group of guys, closed group of men and women who knew exactly what they were doing. And they made the decision to do it because they thought they were never going to get caught.
All righty. Well, thank you, Anthony. Insights, as always. That was SkyBridge Capital founder and managing partner, Anthony Scaramucci.